Jules and I met during orientation week in college. We were paired as roommates completely at random, but by the second night, we were sitting cross-legged on the dorm floor, drinking warm boxed wine from mugs and telling each other things we hadn't even told our families. She was magnetic, loud in the best way. The kind of person who danced barefoot at parties and somehow got away with skipping class but still aced everything. People gravitated toward her, and I always felt lucky she'd picked me to keep close. We used to call ourselves accidental soulmates. She'd write it on notes she'd leave on my desk before exams, or scribble it across my to-go coffee cup when I was pulling an all-nighter. And it felt true. I'd never had a friend like Jules before, someone who showed up with Thai food when I was crying over a breakup, someone who dragged me out to open mic nights because she knew I needed to get out of my head. We even had matching tattoos, a tiny lightning bolt behind our left ears. Impulsive, yes, but it felt right. She was the first person I ever trusted fully. When my mom got sick senior year, Jules drove 6 hours with me to the hospital and stayed 2 nights in that awful waiting room chair. She never made it about her. She never complained. She just was there. We promised each other we'd never drift. Even when she got married a year after graduation and I didn't. Even when she had her first kid and I was still bouncing between jobs, trying to find my footing. I was at every baby shower, every birthday, every girls' night that somehow became less about wine and more about folding laundry while she vented about sleep regressions and daycare costs. But I didn't mind. I loved her kids. I loved her. And it felt good to be needed, like I was important in their world. She used to say, "You're more than a friend. You're family." And I believed her. When I think back now, I realize the shift didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a betrayal in a single moment. It was a slow drip, 1,000 tiny shifts in tone, and expectations, and how often my phone rang only when something was needed. But in those early years, I didn't see any of it. I saw the best friend who made me feel less alone in the world. I saw the woman who once stood up during a toast at my birthday dinner and said, "I trust Nina with my life." And the truth is, I'd already started giving it to her, one piece at a time. After college, Jules got married fast to a guy named Eric she met on a weekend trip to Denver. I remember thinking how quickly it all happened. Within a year, she was posting ultrasound photos and talking about house hunting in the suburbs. I was still renting a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat and eating cereal for dinner. But Jules never made me feel behind. At least, not then. She always said I was the grounded one, the one who kept her sane. So even when her life moved faster than mine, she'd call me late at night just to talk. Or she'd drive into the city with the baby strapped to her chest and a bottle of wine in her bag, insisting we were still fun. I babysat for the first time when her daughter, Mia, was 6 months old. Just for an afternoon while Jules got her hair done. "You're the only one I trust," she said. I held the baby like porcelain and felt weirdly honored when she fell asleep in my arms. After that, it became a rhythm. A weekend here, an overnight there. Sometimes with a handoff in the middle of a parking lot or a text that said, "Hey, any chance you're free tonight?" At first, I always said yes. Because that's what friends do, right? Then came the candle business. Jules had always been crafty, always loved making things smell like eucalyptus and pine. One day she asked if I could help her just figure out a name for her Etsy shop. That turned into me designing her logo, building a full website, setting up payment integration, writing product blurbs like I was some kind of marketing agency. She didn't pay me, but she gave me a friends make it happen mug and said, "I seriously couldn't have done this without you." I drank from that mug for 2 years. Then there were the money favors. Never big amounts, $40 for a phone bill. $120 to cover groceries until Friday. Once, $600 to replace the water heater. I'd Venmo her, and she'd reply with, "You're an angel." But Friday never came. I told myself it all balanced out. I wasn't paying rent on weekends when I stayed at her house. I got to be around the kids. And Jules made it feel like I was part of something, like we were building this beautiful life together, even if it wasn't technically mine. The first time I felt something shift was when I asked her for help. I was moving apartments, and I just needed someone to drive boxes with me. She said, "Ugh, that's the worst kind of favor. I'd rather watch your cat for a month." Then she laughed like it was a joke. I laughed too, but something lodged in my throat that day. Something I didn't cough up until years later. It got harder to say no, not because I couldn't, but because the moment I hesitated, Jules would tilt her head and say something like, "Wow, I guess I just thought you cared." Or worse, "You've changed." You used to be so generous. Those words stuck to my ribs like shame. I'd say yes just to make the discomfort go away. She never shouted. Jules didn't have to. She had this way of making refusal feel like betrayal. Like the real crime wasn't that she asked too much, it was that I stopped giving so freely. One time I told her I was exhausted, that I couldn't take the kids for the weekend because I had a deadline and had barely slept. She texted back, "They were looking forward to seeing you. But it's fine. We'll figure something out." I felt like I'd just broken a promise. Like I was disappointing children who weren't even mine. I started rearranging my life around her needs without realizing it. Saying no to plans with other friends. Working late to make up for time spent helping her. I once skipped a date, someone I'd actually liked, because Jules asked me to pick up Mia from ballet when she got slammed at work. I told myself it was temporary. That one day, when things settled for her, she'd remember everything I'd done. That maybe she'd return the favor when I needed it. But that day never came. If I got sick, Jules would say, "Ugh, you need to take better care of yourself," but she never offered soup or a ride to urgent care. If I seemed down, she'd say, "You've been in a mood lately. Want a vent?" And somehow it always circled back to how hard her life was. It was like our friendship existed in a house she built, and I was the one constantly fixing the roof, mowing the lawn, keeping the lights on, while she complained about the decor. There was one night, I remember it vividly, when she showed me her new product photos. I'd taken them on my day off, edited them until my eyes blurred. She posted them online with a caption that said, "Finally nailed the vibe I wanted." Not even a tag. Not even a mention. I commented, "Glad you like the shots," and she replied, "You always know how to make things work." That was it. A pat on the head. I don't know when it stopped being friendship and started being labor. But at some point, it did. And every time I tried to pull back, she made me feel like I was being selfish. Like I was failing some invisible moral test. I didn't realize until later that generosity isn't supposed to make you feel used. And love isn't supposed to be measured by how much you can endure. It took me too long to test the boundary. Not even a real one, just a light push. I remember the exact moment. It was a Saturday morning, and Jules had asked me to take both kids just for a bit, so she and Eric could go furniture shopping. That bit always meant at least 6 hours. But that day, I had plans. Brunch with a friend from work, someone I was finally starting to connect with outside the shadow of Jules's orbit. I texted back, "Can't today. I've got plans I can't move." No apology. No explanation. Just one simple no. Her reply came within minutes. "You've really changed, Nina. I don't know what's going on with you lately, but it's not cute." I stared at my phone for a long time, heart thudding. That one message made it feel like I just lit a match in a house full of gas. And it was all because I decided to prioritize a $16 mimosa and some laughter with someone who didn't ask me to sacrifice myself to prove I cared. That day shook something loose in me. I started noticing the pattern, the way Jules never acknowledged when I was struggling. The way she only called when she needed something. The way "I love you" from her always came attached to a favor. I remembered when I told her, gently, that I was feeling burnt out, not just from helping her, but from work, from life. She looked up from her phone and said, "You used to be stronger." It was like my pain was inconvenient. My exhaustion, a flaw. But I still wasn't ready to walk away. Instead, I tried to compromise. I started spacing out visits, letting calls go to voicemail, taking longer to reply to texts. I thought maybe she'd get the hint. Maybe she'd ask if I was okay. Maybe she'd realize something was off and try to meet me halfway. Instead, she doubled down. Texts like, "The girls miss you. They don't understand why you're being distant." Or, "If you didn't want to be in our lives, I just wish you'd said so." She knew exactly where to aim. It wasn't about guilt. It was about control dressed up as concern. I started writing in my journal again, something I hadn't done in years. In one entry, just 4 words, stopped me cold. "This doesn't feel safe." That was the first time I let myself call it what it was, emotional servitude. A one-sided devotion I'd been tricked into thinking was love. But I still hadn't found my exit. Not yet. I got laid off on a Thursday, just before lunch. My boss used words like restructuring and budget cuts and not a reflection of your work, but all I heard was, "You're not needed anymore." I packed up my desk in silence. No tears. Not yet. It wasn't until I got home, dropped my bag, sat on the floor, and stared at the wall, that the grief hit me. Not just about the job, but about everything I'd been holding together. Everything I thought I was doing right. I texted Jules that evening. Told her I'd lost my job, that I needed some time to recalibrate emotionally and financially, that I might be offline for a bit. Her reply came 2 hours later. Let me know when you're done sulking. The kids miss you. That was the moment something snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft internal click, like a door I hadn't realized was unlocked quietly swinging shut. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't offer help. Didn't say, I'm here. Just guilt, served cold. For the first time in over a decade, I didn't respond. I sat in the quiet and thought about how much I had given her. Not just time and money and labor, but attention, loyalty, the kind of friendship that absorbs blows and still shows up the next day. And I thought, what would she do if I disappeared? Not died, just stopped. Stopped replying. Stopped showing up. Stopped serving. Would she even miss me? Or just the role I played? That night, I started making the list. I didn't mean for it to turn into anything serious. It was just a way to ground myself, to quantify the invisible weight I'd carried. It started with childcare. I opened my calendar app and began scrolling back, tallying weekends, holidays, late-night emergency runs. 216 hours. At the low end of what a sitter charges? That alone was more than $3,000. Then came the website. I looked up freelance design rates. $1,200. Photography, marketing copy, product uploads? Another $800. Then the loans. Venmo history didn't lie. $1,700. All marked with casual notes. Just until Friday. You're a lifesaver. I owe you big time. Rides. Groceries. Event planning. Emotional labor. It added up faster than I expected. When I was done, I sat there staring at the total. $9,842.60. And for the first time, I didn't feel petty. I felt clear. So I formatted it like a real invoice. Clean, simple. I added a subject line. Family favors. Then I sent it to her. I didn't expect a reply, but I got one. Jules's reply came the next morning. I saw her name pop up in my inbox before I even opened my eyes fully. My heart pounded, but I felt strangely calm. Like the hardest part was already over. The subject line. You're sick. The message itself was short, sharp, almost surgical. After everything I've done for you, this is how you act? Counting up every little thing like you're my accountant? You need help. I feel sorry for you, Nina. You'll never find another friend like me. I read it twice, waiting for a second email to follow. Something softer, or angry, or anything. But that was it. She didn't mention the money, or the time, or the years I'd poured into her life like water into a leaky bucket. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't ask if I was okay. Just accusation. Just dismissal. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, but because I was finally done giving her any more of myself. Not another ounce of explanation or apology. I just archived the email, closed my laptop, and sat in the stillness. There was grief. Of course there was. 12 years is not nothing. I cried that night. Not for Jules, but for the part of me that thought loving someone meant giving them everything. For the younger Nina who believed being, like family, meant being on call forever, no questions asked. A few days passed. My phone was eerily quiet. No requests for help. No. Can you pick up Mia from dance? Texts. The silence felt strange, but also light. For the first time, I had whole days with nothing expected of me. I told my therapist everything. I said, I know I'm supposed to feel angry, but mostly I just feel empty. She smiled gently and said, sometimes emptiness is space waiting to be filled by something new. I went for walks. I started reading again. I cooked for myself, just myself. I watched movies without pausing to answer someone's urgent message. I realized how much of my life had been lived in the margins of other people's needs. A week went by. No word from Jules. The urge to check in, to smooth things over, faded a little each day. I knew this was the real test, whether I could let the silence be and not try to fill it with another apology, another offering. I never heard from her again, except for a single, wordless, thumbs-up reaction to a photo I posted months later. It wasn't vengeance. It wasn't victory. Just an ending I finally allowed to happen. Now, when I look at my life, it's quieter. There are fewer texts, fewer plans. I have weekends to myself, and sometimes, yes, it's lonely. But it's a loneliness that feels honest, like a room that's finally been cleared out, sunlight coming through clean windows. I've learned to sit with that space. to let it fill with things that are just mine. Small routines, small pleasures, cooking elaborate breakfasts, reading for hours, taking walks without glancing at my phone. It's strange how many of my habits used to revolve around anticipation. Waiting for Jules's next request, for the next little emergency where I was expected to show up and save the day. It's not that I don't miss her. I do sometimes. I miss the idea of us, the late-night talks, the feeling of being someone's chosen person. But when I miss her, I remind myself what I really miss is the version of me who believed that loyalty meant self-erasure. I don't miss the exhaustion. I don't miss the guilt. People sometimes ask why we grew apart. I don't give details. I just say, sometimes friendship means giving. Sometimes it means learning when to stop. If they press, I smile and change the subject. I don't owe anyone an explanation, not even myself. It took me years to understand that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors I can choose to close or open, depending on who's standing on the other side. I used to think kindness was saying yes, no matter what. Now I know the bravest thing I ever did was say no, and mean it. I have new friends now. Not many, but the ones I keep are gentle with my time, and I'm gentle with theirs. When someone calls me generous, I know it's true because I'm choosing it, not trapped in it. And I never feel guilty for ignoring a text that comes with strings attached. There are days I still catch myself reaching for my phone when I see her name, half expecting another request, another quick favor. But there's only silence, and I've learned to welcome it. Jules once said I was like a sister. Maybe she was right, but I finally know what that word means to me. It means loving without losing yourself.